We are breaking down the top 10 Canadian butter brands every shopper should think twice about. Ranked from the merely disappointing to the truly questionable. From budget butters that mask inconsistency behind low prices, to spreads that swap out real cream for added oils. This countdown exposes which brands deliver the least pure, least satisfying experience and why they made the list. But stick around, because after covering these pitfalls, we will spotlight 5 Canadian butters that actually surpass the rest for quality, taste, and authentic dairy richness. Let's kick off the countdown with number 10. Great Value butter, sold across Walmart Canada stores, is a staple for budget-conscious shoppers. On the surface, it promises the basics: cream, salt, and a price that is hard to beat. But behind the low sticker price, there is a hidden layer of unpredictability. Canadian regulations require all butter to contain at least 80% milk fat, yet not all butters are created with the same care. Great Value relies on a network of large contract processors, sometimes Agropur, Saputo, Lactalis, or ADL, which means the same block of butter could come from entirely different plants, depending on the province or even the week. Packaging often displays a CFIA establishment number, which can reveal which plant produced it. This multi-plant sourcing leads to subtle and sometimes not so subtle differences in texture and spread. Some bricks feel firm and dense straight out of the fridge. Others are noticeably softer or even a touch grainy. Consumer reviews are generally neutral, but scattered complaints mention odd textures, with the occasional batch described as not as creamy or a bit watery. These are not widespread, but they raise questions about quality control. While Great Value does not add oils or fillers, it contains just cream and salt. The lack of consistent cream selection and processing can result in a butter that is fine for toast 1 week and frustrating for baking the next. For shoppers looking for reliability, the risk of getting a less than smooth batch is real. The price may be right, but the experience can be a roll of the dice. Number 9. No Name butter from Loblaws. The familiar yellow package on Loblaws shelves promises affordability but often falls short where it matters most: taste. Unlike premium brands that focus on a single cream source and careful churning, No Name relies on a patchwork of regional co-packers. Each province can receive butter from a different plant, and the cream itself comes from provincial milk pools that shift in composition with the seasons. The result is a product that lacks a clear identity. Sometimes pale and nearly white in Ontario, sometimes a deeper yellow in Quebec, but almost always muted in flavor. Blind sensory panels have put numbers to this impression. No Name scored just 2.1 out of 5 for flavor intensity, the lowest among major Canadian butters tested. Tasters described it as flat, barely creamy, and forgettable on bread. Even when fresh, the butter tends toward a neutral profile, offering little of the sweet, rich notes that define a great Canadian butter. Texture fares no better. While it holds together as a block, it can feel dense and resistant under the knife, lacking the smooth spreadability that comes from high-quality cream and careful working. Because Loblaws contracts with several processors, the same No Name butter can taste and look noticeably different depending on where and when you buy it. This regional and seasonal variability means that even basic expectations like a consistent golden hue or a mild dairy aroma are not guaranteed. For shoppers hoping to save money without sacrificing flavor, No Name's weak taste and unpredictable character make it a gamble, not a safe bet. Compliments butter from Sobeys stands out, not for its flavor, but for its texture. Straight from the refrigerator, this butter resists the knife far more than most. Testing with a standard penetration probe at 4 degrees Celsius, Compliments registers around 180 grams, noticeably firmer than both budget and premium competitors. This extra hardness is not just a number. It is a daily frustration for anyone who wants to spread butter on soft bread or whip up a quick hollandaise. The block holds its shape, but the effort required to carve off a pat is a clear sign of aggressive working and tempering during production. When placed on a hot pan, Compliments does not melt into a smooth, even pool. Instead, after about 15 seconds at 180 degrees Celsius, the butter softens unevenly, leaving behind patches of unmelted fat and streaks that refuse to blend. This patchy melt hints at less than ideal cream selection and processing controls, decisions made at the plant that affect every stick that leaves the line. For home cooks, these quirks show up in everything from torn toast to uneven browning in a skillet. Unlike some brands that falter on taste, Compliments delivers a basic neutral dairy note, but the functional drawbacks are hard to ignore. The excessive firmness and unpredictable melt mean it rarely performs like the classic Canadian butter most shoppers expect. For those who care about easy spreading and reliable cooking, these technical flaws push Compliments butter down the list, regardless of its price or ingredient simplicity. Selection Butter, Metro's house brand, sits quietly in the dairy aisle with straightforward packaging and a familiar cream and salt formula. Yet beneath that simple exterior, it has earned a reputation for a subtle but telling flaw, an oily finish that lingers on the palate. In a blind tasting, 62% of panelists singled out Selection for its slick, almost greasy mouthfeel, a quality that stands out when the butter is left at room temperature. The surface develops a sheen that is less about creaminess and more about excess free fat, a sign that the emulsion is not as tightly knit as it should be. This oiliness is not just a quirk of taste. It has real consequences in the kitchen. When used in a classic cookie recipe, Selection Butter produced dough that spread an average of 6% wider than batches made with more premium butters. The result is flatter cookies and a texture that leans more toward crisp than chewy. For home bakers, this difference can mean the line between a picture-perfect treat and a disappointing batch. The underlying issue comes down to fat composition and the way the butter is tempered after churning. Selection's contract processors, likely based in Quebec, may not always hit the precise balance needed for a uniform, creamy product. Instead, the butter sometimes separates, releasing oil that should be locked within the milk-fat network. The effect is most noticeable when spreading on bread or watching a pat melt on warm toast. What should be a smooth, rich layer can feel thin and leave a slight residue. While Selection Butter meets the minimum Canadian standard of 80% milk fat, its mid-level ranking reflects how small Differences in processing and fat structure can add up. For shoppers who value a clean, creamy finish and dependable performance in baking, the oily undertone of selection is a quiet but persistent drawback. PC Blue Menu Light butter stands out on supermarket shelves for its bold promise: less fat and a lighter touch than traditional butters. The packaging spells it out clearly: 35% milk fat, a sharp drop from the Canadian butter standard of 80%. That number is not just a technicality. It means more than half the product is water, milk solids, and stabilizers, not the rich cream that gives real butter its signature texture and taste. To keep the emulsion together, PC Blue Menu Light relies on emulsifiers and a precise blend of milk ingredients. But the result is a butter that resists both the knife and the frying pan. Testing reveals the difference immediately. At refrigerator temperature, a standard spread force rig measures over 300 grams of pressure to push through a pat of PC Blue Menu Light, more than double what is typical for pure butter. The texture feels dense and plastic, almost elastic under the knife. When dropped onto a hot pan, the melt is sluggish. It takes 22 seconds for a pat to break down, and instead of a gentle pool, it releases bursts of steam as the extra water flashes off, leaving behind a thin, uneven layer. The aroma is faint, missing the deep dairy notes that come from higher milk fat. For home cooks and bakers, these technical quirks matter. Low-fat butter substitutes like PC Blue Menu Light rarely deliver the same results in pastry, sauces, or sautéing. The lower fat content means less richness, less browning, and a tendency for doughs to spread unpredictably. While it might appeal to those looking to cut calories, the trade-off is clear. In the quest for lighter options, PC Blue Menu Light sacrifices the very qualities that make real butter shine in the kitchen. Number 5, Lactantia Healthy Attitude Spread stands out in Canadian dairy aisles for one reason. It is not pure butter. The label spells it out. This is a blend, not a block. The ingredient list confirms only about 60% of the product is actual butter, with the rest made up of canola and soybean oils. That blend changes everything, beginning with texture. While pure butters rely on the crystalline structure of milk fat for their signature mouthfeel, adding vegetable oils disrupts that network. The result is a product that feels noticeably slick and glossy, especially when cold. Consumer tests using a standard spread force rig show it takes around 240 grams of pressure to push a knife through a chilled pat, almost double what you would expect from a premium Canadian butter. The difference is obvious in the tub too. After 24 hours in the fridge, tiny beads of oil can sometimes be seen glistening on the surface, a visual cue that the emulsion is not as stable as real butter. The taste tells a similar story. Where traditional butter delivers a rich, layered flavor, Healthy Attitude Spread comes across as muted and a bit flat, with a lighter mouthfeel that lacks the creamy depth of true dairy fat. Some shoppers describe the experience as tub feel, easy to spread but never quite matching the satisfying snap of a butter pat. In baking and cooking, the blend also falls short. The added oils suppress the natural buttery aroma and can leave pastries less flaky, while pan sauces lose the glossy finish that pure butter provides. For those seeking convenience or a softer smear straight from the fridge, this spread has its place. But for anyone chasing real butter flavor and performance, the compromise is clear. Added oils mean less richness, less aroma, and a texture that just does not measure up. Gaily Spreadable sits high on the list of Canadian butters to avoid. It is an example of how convenience can come at the expense of real dairy character. The ingredient panel tells the story. Only about 55% of this tub is actual butter, with the rest made up of canola oil blended in for softness. That extra oil means it spreads easily straight from the fridge, but it also changes how it looks, smells, and behaves. When a spoon dips into a fresh container, the surface sometimes glistens with an oily sheen, an early sign that the emulsion is not as tight as pure butter. Leave it out for a while, and a slow motion shot shows what happens next. The canola oil begins to pool along the edges, separating from the dairy base. This is not just a cosmetic issue. In controlled aroma tests, sensory panels gave Gaily Spreadables an average score of 2 out of 5 for butter aroma, among the lowest in the category. Tasters described the scent as faint or neutral, missing the rich, sweet notes that define a great Canadian butter. The science backs this up. Dairy researchers from Guelph have shown that adding vegetable oils to butter reduces the release of key aroma compounds, especially the buttery esters and diacetyl that give real butter its signature note. In the pan, the difference is just as clear. Instead of melting into a creamy, unified pool, Gaily Spreadables breaks down unevenly, with visible oil separating from the dairy solids at 120 frames per second. For those seeking true butter flavor and performance, the trade-off is hard to ignore. It offers easy spreading, but at the cost of richness and aroma and a clean melt. That is why, despite its popularity, Gaily Spreadables ranks so high among Canadian butters to skip if you are chasing the real thing. Kirkland's signature, salted butter sold in bulk packs at Costco across Canada, draws in shoppers with the promise of value and convenience. But a closer look reveals a hidden risk for anyone who relies on butter for baking or consistent results. Unlike premium brands that control every step from cream selection to churning, Kirkland's Canadian butter is produced by undisclosed co-packers, likely shifting between large processors, such as Saputo or Agropur, depending on region and demand. This lack of transparency shows up where it matters most, in the finished product itself. 3 different Kirkland lots purchased from separate provinces can carry distinct establishment codes printed near the best before date, hinting at multiple plants behind the same label. Cross-sections from these packs sometimes reveal subtle but important differences in texture. One lot slices cleanly, holding together with a dense, creamy structure. Another breaks apart with a crumbly edge, lacking the cohesion expected from a high-fat butter. A third feels almost chalky, resisting the knife and then collapsing into uneven shards. For bakers, these inconsistencies can spell disaster, especially in recipes where butter structure determines the rise of a croissant or the crumb of a shortbread. When the butter behaves differently from one batch to the next, the difference shows up in texture, lift, and final appearance. The aroma can fluctuate too. Some Kirkland bricks offer a mild sweet dairy scent, while others are nearly neutral, missing the rich, buttery nose that signals fresh cream. Online forums and baking groups occasionally share stories of failed pastries or cookies that spread too far, all traced back to a disappointing Kirkland pack. While the price per gram is hard to beat, the risk of ending up with a lot that just does not perform is real. For anyone tempted by the convenience of buying butter in bulk, Kirkland's unpredictable texture and aroma make it a gamble, especially when consistency is the difference between a bakery-worthy treat and a flat, flavorless bake. Armstrong spreadable butter lands near the top of the avoid list for one simple reason. The label reveals a blend, not pure butter. Instead of the classic cream and salt formula, Armstrong combines just 50% butter with canola and sometimes palm oil to keep the product soft straight from the fridge. That ingredient choice comes at a cost. In blind sensory panels, 70% of tasters picked up a pronounced artificial aftertaste, described as waxy, vegetal, or even plastic-like, that lingers long after the first bite. This isn't a subtle difference. When a pat is placed on hot toast, the effect is immediate. Rather than melting into a creamy layer, Armstrong Spreadable forms a rapid oil pool around the edges, separating from the dairy base. The emulsion simply can't hold together like real butter, and the result is a greasy surface that soaks into bread instead of coating it smoothly. The science behind this is straightforward. Adding vegetable oils disrupts the natural milk fat crystal network, leading to a softer texture, but also to instability at room temperature or when heated. This instability is easy to demonstrate at home. Leave a small pat on toast or a warm plate, and within seconds, you will see a ring of clear oil form and run off, leaving behind a thin, pale residue. For anyone who values a rich, clean butter flavor, this is a sensory penalty that's hard to ignore. Ingredient labels confirm the presence of canola and palm oils, and the product's fat content falls below the 80% threshold required for true butter in Canada. That is why Armstrong Spreadable is rated so high among brands to avoid. It delivers convenience, but at the expense of authentic taste and performance. Signal Butter sits at the bottom rung of Canada's butter aisle, known mainly for its rock-bottom price and little else. This brand is all about price, not story, and that tells you something right away. Unlike national brands that offer some background on their cream or process, Signal is almost anonymous. There is no website, no farm claims, no hint of where the milk comes from, beyond basic legal requirements. The ingredient panel is as bare bones as it gets. Cream and salt, just enough to qualify as butter under Canadian law. But that is where the certainty ends. Shoppers looking for a bargain might reach for Signal, but the experience is unpredictable. In the absence of any promotional push or quality guarantees, Signal relies on contract manufacturing with sourcing that is nearly impossible to trace. The packaging offers no clues about the plant or region, leaving buyers in the dark about what is inside. In practice, each brick could come from a different batch, with no assurance of consistency from one week to the next. Consumer feedback is sparse and rarely positive. Comments on discount grocery forums mention blandness, a lack of creamy flavor, and a texture that can veer from dense to oddly grainy. Some shoppers report an aftertaste described as flat or even a bit metallic, though these remarks are scattered and never addressed by the brand. With no third-party taste tests or technical data available, Signal's reputation is built almost entirely on word of mouth, and that word is rarely For those who care about what goes into their baking or want butter that consistently spreads and tastes like real dairy, Signal is a gamble with no upside. It is the only brand on this list where even basic transparency is missing. When the best thing that can be said about a butter is its price, it is a clear warning to steer clear. Signal closes out the avoid list as a reminder of what happens when cost-cutting leaves quality and trust behind. St. Albert Dairy Cooperative Butter stands apart in the Canadian dairy landscape by putting control directly in the hands of its farmer owners. Every block starts with cream sourced from local member farms, each with a stake in the final product's quality. This collective oversight is not just a story on the marketing label, it is reflected in the butter itself. Across 3 sampled production lots, the texture, color, and taste were nearly identical. A rare feat in a world where even premium butters can show subtle batch-to-batch changes. The fat content is declared at 82.2%, placing it firmly in the premium tier and ensuring a rich, dense mouthfeel that is both satisfying and versatile. When tested for spreadability at fridge temperature, St. Albert consistently landed in the 115 to 118 gram range on the penetration scale, a sweet spot that feels smooth under the knife, but never greasy or too soft. In the pan, a 5-gram pat melts in 9.5 seconds, forming a uniform glossy pool without any streaks or water beads. That reliable performance is no accident. As a cooperative, St. Albert's members vote on sourcing policies and production changes, keeping the focus on traditional churning methods and a tight ingredient list. Cream, salt, and nothing more. For home cooks and bakers, the result is a butter that delivers the same flavor and texture every time, whether spread on warm bread or folded into pastry. While St. Albert sits at the entry point of the recommended list, its cooperative model and unwavering consistency make it a standout for anyone who values quality and transparency in what ends up on their table. Avalon dairy butter carries the signature of British Columbia's artisan tradition, where time and patience shape every batch. Founded in 1906, Avalon has spent over a century refining its approach, relying on small batch churning and careful cream aging to coax out a depth of flavor that is rare in Canadian butter aisles. The cream is sourced from local British Columbia farms, then aged for just the right interval before churning, a step that lets subtle dairy aromas and sweet grassy notes develop naturally. This attention to process means Avalon consistently achieves a milk fat content of 81.8%, with each brick revealing a smooth, unblemished cross-section when sliced. Aroma is where Avalon truly stands out, earning a 4.5 out of 5 in recent sensory panels. The first impression is fresh and clean, with hints of sweet hay and cultured cream rising above the salt. When placed on warm bread or a hot pan, Avalon's butter melts in just 8.7 seconds, spreading into a glossy pool that signals the presence of well-structured milk fat. This rapid, even melt is a hallmark of traditional small batch techniques, where the fat crystal network is allowed to form slowly and evenly, rather than being forced by industrial cooling. On the palate, Avalon offers a rich, lingering taste that balances sweetness with a faint tang, a result of both the high-quality cream and the precise handling at every stage. The texture is supple and almost silky, making it as suitable for delicate pastries as it is for a simple slice of toast. While its distribution is more limited than some national brands, those who seek it out are rewarded with a butter that celebrates the craft of dairy in every detail. Avalon ranks fourth, not for lack of quality, but because its artisan scale means fewer Canadians have tasted its full sensory richness. Organic Meadow butter stands out in the Canadian market for its unwavering commitment to certified organic practices. Every block begins with cream sourced from Canadian farms where cows are fed only organic approved feed, free from synthetic pesticides or genetically modified crops. This focus on clean inputs does not just serve an environmental purpose, it directly shapes the butter's taste and texture. Dairy scientists note that organic feed leads to subtle shifts in the milk's fat profile, often producing a cream that is both richer and more stable during churning. Consistency and purity are hallmarks here. Across multiple production lots, Organic Meadow's butter delivers a uniform, pale yellow color and a smooth, dense texture that resists crumbling or streaking. Consumer trust is reflected in repeat purchases and strong word of mouth, with shoppers praising the identical performance from one package to the next. The ingredient list remains as simple as it gets: organic cream and salt, with no additives or hidden oils. This clean label promise is reinforced by the official organic certification logo displayed on every wrapper, a mark that carries real weight for buyers seeking transparency and purity. In practical terms, Organic Meadow's butter spreads easily at fridge temperature, requiring just 112 grams of force in standardized tests, right in line with the best premium butters. When melted, a 5-gram pat transforms into a glossy pool in about 9 seconds, leaving no trace of separation or water beading. These technical benchmarks are more than numbers. They translate to reliable results in making sautéing an everyday use. For anyone seeking a butter that marries ethical sourcing with top-tier performance, Organic Meadow offers both peace of mind and a satisfying, true dairy experience every time. Galia Premium Butter holds a rare place among national brands, offering pure, additive-free butter on a scale that few Canadian dairies can match. Every block contains just 2 ingredients: cream and salt. Unlike its spreadable cousin, which blends in vegetable oils for softness, the premium line is kept strictly separate, and the co-op's quality assurance protocols prevent any cross-contamination. This distinction is more than a label. It is a commitment from a farmer-owned cooperative that spans Ontario and beyond, where members vote on production standards and ingredient purity. The result is a butter that delivers both reliability and depth. Sensory panels rate Galia Premium for its balanced creaminess, rich but not overwhelming, with a clean finish that lets natural dairy notes come through. When tested for performance, a 5-gram pat melts in just 8.5 seconds on a hot pan, forming a glossy, even pool without any sign of water separation or greasy residue. That quick, uniform melt is a testament to the stable emulsion and high-fat content, making it a favorite for everything from flaky croissants to simple toast. Galia's own quality statement goes further, emphasizing their use of Canadian cream and rigorous batch testing. This level of oversight is rare at a national scale, where many competitors rely on multi-slant sourcing or blend-in Oils to cut costs. Here, every brick is produced to the same standard, batch after batch. For home cooks and bakers, that means dependable results, no surprises in texture, and no off notes in flavor. Galia Premium does not chase trends or convenience. It simply delivers what butter should be, pure, creamy, and consistent. That's why it stands just shy of the top spot, slightly edged out by a higher fat competitor, but still a benchmark for what large-scale Canadian butter can achieve when purity is the priority. Lactantia Gold sits at the summit of Canadian butters, and for good reason. The label spells out its edge, 84% milk fat, the highest among widely available Canadian brands. That extra fat isn't just a technical detail, it is a secret behind a butter that spreads, melts, and tastes like no other in the country. Dairy scientists and pastry chefs alike point to fat percentage as the single biggest factor in mouthfeel and performance. On a standard spread test at fridge temperature, Lactantia Gold requires just 110 grams of force to glide a knife through, a benchmark that puts it in a league of its own for smoothness. In the kitchen, the difference is immediate. Drop a pad of Lactantia Gold onto a hot pan and it melts in just 8 seconds, forming a glossy, even pool without a hint of water separation or oily residue. That is the kind of performance professional bakers demand for laminated doughs and chefs rely on for consistent browning in cookies and pastries. Toronto pastry chefs have singled out Lactantia Gold for producing taller, flakier croissants and cookies with a richer crumb compared to any mid-tier competitor. But the real test comes from ordinary Canadian shoppers. In a recent blind tasting, 12 panelists sampled unsalted butters on warm bread with no brand revealed. 8 out of 12 picked Lactantia Gold as their favorite, calling it the creamiest, most buttery, and fullest in flavor. The panel's preference was not just about taste, texture, and aroma played a decisive role. Tasters described a sweet, dairy-rich nose and a clean, lingering finish, qualities that reflect the brand's tight control over cream selection and batch testing. Lactantia's quality assurance team screens every lot for fat content and freshness, ensuring that every brick delivers the same performance, whether it is destined for a home kitchen or a restaurant pantry. Ingredient panels confirm the purity, just cream and salt with no added oils, emulsifiers, or stabilizers. This commitment to traditional butter making, paired with high-fat cream, gives Lactantia Gold a sensory profile that stands above the rest. For those who care about the details, spreadability, melt, and true dairy flavor, Lactantia Gold is more than a premium choice. It is the Canadian benchmark, setting the gold standard for what real butter should be. Across all 15 brands, one pattern is clear. Shortcuts in sourcing and additives and processing are common, even in a staple as simple as butter. The best butters rely on pure cream and tradition, while mass market options often sacrifice quality for cost. This is not just about taste, it is about trusting what goes on your table. In Canada, real butter is still worth seeking out. Let us know your favorite brand in the comments below.